But
Well, it depends a little bit on who you talk to,
mm,
because most people I know who are into radical life extension, they're totally aware that the kind of idea, yeah, you cannot possibly die, yeah, that's kind of a really bad thing.
yeah,
So the life extension and right to die movement actually have a fair bit of overlap. But there is something very odd about I agree that many people say they wish for immortality and then they actually don't know what to do with it.
yeah,
The really weird people are the religious ones.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
they tend to say that, oh, you life extension is, yeah, yes, only true immortality can be reached in heaven.
Yeah.
And then they start using arguments which mean that actually it sounds like your heaven is really bad. Wouldn't you
It
want to
sounds
die after a
horrible.
trillion years of singing harps?
No, it would be horrible. Even
Yeah.
5 minutes of that, you'd be like, "Get me out of here!" What?
Yeah,
No.
and the funny thing is, typically when you talk to people who believe that heaven is good, they will say, "Don't worry, your mind will be transformed by God, so you're going to like it." Now, if I said, in my little utopia, my computer is going to reprogram your brain to like it, everybody would say, "Yuck, that's creepy.
Yeah,
That's an absolutely
absolutely not.
dystopian view."
Yeah.
So what's going on here is, of course, they assume that, well, God is good and he will sort it out somehow. And this is, of course, really annoying, both if you're an atheist or if you're a serious theologian. But most people have rather naive views about what we really want. And when you try to refine them, you find all sorts of interesting things. For example, I'm pretty okay with indefinite lifespan, but I'm aware that's going to mean that the being I become over time is going to be so different from who I am right now that I might not actually have anything in common. Which in many ways means that, okay, I'm kind of, in some sense, the current Anders is extinct, but I think that's a pretty fine way to go. And if all the beings along this curve are very happy with what we're evolving in, that's kind of great.
Yeah.
Then I can approve of all this future weirdness, even though I can't say I endorse whatever it is. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you have to develop and overcome, because otherwise I think you would get really bored. Otherwise, if you did stay exactly the same the whole way through, I think you would ultimately end up getting really bored by yourself as well.
But it's interesting that people use boredom also as they even think this is a good argument against life extension, which I find fascinating. This is not just done by normal people. You grab off the street and start asking. You find it Bernard Williams' work, etc. And many philosophers have taken this as a very serious objection to immortality.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because normally we don't find boredom to be a serious objection against things.
Yeah.
It's not like we would say, we would ban all modern French films because they're boring.
Yeah.
Even if it was a fact that they were boring, it doesn't mean that we should as a society ban them because they induce this emotion. It's not like boredom is the worst thing ever. And in medical ethics, you could totally make the argument, yeah, if we cure cancer patients, they're going to live for a long time and they might be bored. So that's why we shouldn't cure cancer. It's really funny to see how people use the boredom argument to avoid the actual discussion, which is, of course, what do you do with a long life, which is way more complicated and individual and doesn't get into a neat shape. So then people try to formulate it as boredom and think that they have a slam dunk argument. As somebody dealing with bioethics, I find it very fun to see when people are willing to accept bad arguments. That's usually a sign that here is some cool things buried. Of course, pointing out that people are wrong doesn't make you many friends and might cause all sorts of uproar, but that can be fun too.